The president doubling, tripling, quadrupling down another $200 billion of tariffs on Chinese goods and products that they're dumping into the U.S. This is a mathematical formula here the president can't lose. This is brilliant. Every time the Chinese retaliate, just one-upping them into oblivion because we're giving them $550 billion of trade deficit. They want our consumers. Keep doing it. Eventually, they'll cave. And the president knows this because, unfortunately, he's got all the cards. So it's like you're in a poker game and you've got a royal flush and somebody's got like 4 jacks or something. I mean, they can keep up. You're going to keep up in them. Eventually, you're going to win, right? Because you have the best hand. And that's where the president is here. And it's brilliant. And, you know, he came in as the great disruptor. He's disrupting everything. Goes to NATO, chiding Germany. He's like, let's pay up, right? You're supposed to pay 2%. You're paying 1.3. Well, we'll pay you in 2030. No, I don't think so. No, I'm not. This is, we're done with debt. I used to do debt in the old days. Now I want the cash. Pony up. By the way, you're spending billions of dollars giving it to the Russian Federation for pipelines and gas. So then I'm going to pay for your defense. Our taxpayers are going to pay to defend you against Russia, who you got a pipeline with, who you're paying hundreds of billions of dollars to? I don't think so. Basically what he said. Same thing here with the tariffs. Joining us now to break this down, though, our good friend, Dan DiMicco. Dan's a cool guy. Let me tell you, he's been fighting this battle with us. There's only a handful of us in America that are Republicans that have been fighting this battle on these unfair trade deals. Me, Dan, DiMicco is going to be with us now, Curtis Ellis, Pat Buchanan, and Trump. So finally, we got the upper hand now, right? Finally, people taking us seriously because it's working. Dan DiMicco is going to be with us. He's a former trade advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. He's a current trade advisor to the United States Trade Representative. He's chairman of the Coalition for a Prosperous America. Oh, I love that. Prosperous America. Who's not for that? And he's the retired CEO of Nucor Corporation, the nation's largest steel producer. All that wrapped into one, and he's with us now to break this down. Dan DiMicco. Hey, Dan, good to have you, man.
Good to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Dan, I know you're fired up about this. Look, the president just levied another, or says he's going to, through Robert Lighthouse, the U.S. Trade Representative, another $200 billion in Chinese goods and products. He's put another 10 to 25% tariff on them. Now, everybody's all up in arms. But, since this has started, like Wall Street went down a little bit. Now people are realizing this is a good thing for our jobs. That's stable. Chicken Little hasn't come. The sky hasn't fallen. Everybody's not dead as we go through this. But my calculus here, Dan, is that we have a $550 billion trade deficit. That means our money goes to them plus $550 billion, which means we're buying a lot more stuff from them, $550 billion, than they are for us. So as the Chinese retaliate, where does this end?
Well, listen, for over a year, the administration, Trump's administration, has been patiently urging China to stop its unfair trade practices, open up its markets, and engage in true market competition. And this has been going on now for some 20-plus years, where China has engaged in a trade war with us. President Trump is the first American president to engage in this trade war. We didn't start it. We've been the victim of it. It's decimated our middle class, our manufacturing sector. They steal our intellectual property, and so on and so on. And so the president worked for the last year to make an impression upon the Chinese that, hey, listen, we're serious about this. This has got to change. Your behavior's got to change. You promised to do that when you joined the WTO back in the 90s, and you have completely failed to live up to those promises. The day of reckoning is here. We have no choice. It's a matter of our economic success and national defense going forward. It's important to our nation. And we're here, and we're all in on this trade thing. You totally ignored us. You didn't work with us at all over the last 12 months. We had no other choice. We're not going to be like other administrations and just say, okay, thanks for doing nothing. And there's $200 billion additional products that they're going to put a 10% tariff on. And by the way, that 10% is 10% today. That doesn't need to, it can be higher than that. But that's what he's asked the USTR to do its study on and to have the legal process that is necessary for him to go through. And these will be imposed in the fall if there's not some significant movement on China's part to live up to the promises it made and stop being the world's trade cheater.
Well, look, they're not going to do it because they keep retaliating. So the opponents to this, Dan, and let's just talk about the other side here. So the opponents to this say, look, the president is starting a needless trade war. Yeah, so there's a $550 billion trade deficit and, $850 billion annually with everybody, $550 with China. So what? That doesn't matter. We're getting cheap goods in. Prices are down. Hey, if you get into this thing, it's going to hurt farmers. They're not going to be able to sell soybeans to Beijing. Prices are going to go up. You're going to pay more for a six-pack of PBR. And, the people that make auto parts for your cars, those are going to go up. So, it's going to erase the tax cut, put the economy in a tizzy, and the stock market's going to crash, the sky's going to fall, and we're all going to be dead. How do you respond to that?
I don't know. The same people have been saying that we're all going to be dead because of what Trump's doing now for well over a year, and last time I checked, the population was still growing. My basic response is that's all Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Would have, might, should, could, maybe. The reality is we don't have a choice anymore. Things have gotten so bad with the theft of IP that it's affecting not only our ability to innovate in the future, but also to defend ourselves when so much of our supply chain for whether it be our infrastructure, for our military, our communications, is at risk and is getting worse. And it would have been one thing if the current president of China, who's now president for life, would have said, hey, let's sit down and let's work things out. But instead, they've doubled down, quadrupled down with their China 2025 policy, with their stated aims to dominate the world. Not to be a partner in global trade, but to dominate all the industries of the future. And they've laid the groundwork for being able to do that by stealing most of everything that they've got. They haven't developed it. They've stolen it. If you don't believe me, take a look at some of the military hardware, the planes that they have out there. They're literally exact duplicates of ours because they've stolen it from our national defense manufacturers and from our government. This issue is much bigger than any short-term pain that we're going to experience. We did not start a trade war. You said that. They say that. The trade war has been waged against us since they joined the WTO over 23 years ago.
Right.
We are just engaging in that now and saying enough's enough. Time to stop, time to play by the rules and become a true member of the free and open market community in the world and not a trade mercantilist whose goal is to basically conquer the world economically. And as a result of that, as you all know, and as you well know, if you don't have a strong economy, you don't have a strong national defense, you don't have a strong military, you're not a world leader. Last time I checked, I don't think the world wants Communist Chinese to be running the world.
Well, Dan DiMicco, you hit it on the head. We're with Dan DiMicco. He's the former trade advisor to the Trump campaign. He's a current trade advisor to the United States Trade Representative, Bob Lighthouser's office. And he's also the chairman of the Coalition for a Prosperous America, former retired CEO. Well, it's not former and retired, so let's just end that. Double negative, right? If any student is listening to me, they'd be like, excuse me? The retired. So you get your English right here, John. Retired CEO of the Nucor Corporation, which the largest steel maker in the United States. He was CEO of that. So it's like a big deal, and he's with us now. So, Dan, the bottom line is, look, China entered the argument to bring China into the WTO was, hey, they're going to get to WTO. They're going to engage in free trade. They're going to want to build a market. They're going to want people to have access to their market. They want access to other people's. They're going to get into WTO. They're going to play nice. They're going to behave. It's going to change their outlook. They're going to become a democracy. Everything is going to be rose petals. Their people will be free. Life will be good. Well, none of that happened. They did the exact opposite. They got in. Absolutely. They weaseled it. They cheated. They stole. They manipulated. They do what they do. They're a communist country run by a dictator, right? That happens to have the title of president. The guy's a dictator. This is a communist country out for world domination. And they have, China, what is it? China 2025, which is basically dominate all the futuristic industries in the world, dominate them, control their pricing. And by dominating that, they dominate everything. And so you got to go to them to buy anything because they've shut your industries down. And that's what they're attempting to do in the U.S. And the president has finally called them out on it and put some teeth behind it. Obama complained about he didn't do anything. The whole Bush family, I don't know what they did. They were all asleep at the wheel, right? But nobody's done anything except now, right?
I absolutely right. That this is the first president since Ronald Reagan to stand up for American workers, American manufacturing, and the future well-being of this country, its economic security and its national security. The first president since Reagan, regardless of past Republican or Democratic presidents in between the two.
All right.
And the American people get it. That's why they put him in office. He's delivering on his promises. The Chinese, listen, there's nothing wrong with a country wanting to be a leader. There's nothing wrong with them wanting to be a player in the world economically. But the problem is China said one thing and has done completely the opposite. And they've shown themselves not to be a global player that abides by the rules they agreed to, that access to the world's economy and the world's markets. They've done just the opposite, like you said. And enough is enough. And if we allow it to continue, whether you and I are alive to see it, we allow it to continue the way it's been going, this entire country of ours is in grave national security, and so will be the world. These are not our friends. They are competitors that believe in doing whatever it takes to win, and they have shown that and proven that. The world knows it. Okay, the problem is everybody's got so much invested in China, they're afraid to say with a mouthful. All right, and it's time for the world to say enough's enough. And China goes around trying to make itself look like it's the real champion of free trade, when what they are is the real champion of trade mercantilism, which is the exact opposite of free trade. And the press gives credence to that by reporting it that way instead of challenging them. There's been too many China enablers over the last 30 years with good intentions that China would be a reasonable player in the world economy, that they abide by the rules that they agreed to, that have open markets, that'd be a market economy.
And they didn't do it.
Dominated by national state-owned companies.
Right.
China, every time you turn around, is basically put their finger in the eye of the world saying, hey, I know what we said, we ain't going to do it. We're going to do what we want. We're going to take what we can, and if we can't take it, we'll buy it, and we'll steal it. We're going to build ourselves into a world power.
Right.
And to hell with everybody else, and to hell with the current leadership in the world, in spite of the fact that they said they would be a good player, fair player in the global economy. They've done just the opposite. Enough's enough. Thank God Trump is standing up to it.
Right.
He's got the American people behind him, despite all of the Chicken Little stuff that's out there.
Dan, you're spot on. Thank you very much, Dan DiMicco, former CEO of Nucor Corporation, the largest steel company in the United States, and he's also now an advisor to the USTR. And Bob Lighthouser, thank you, Dan, for being with us. You can follow Dan on Twitter at Dan R. DiMicco. That's DiMicco with all I's, DiMicco. Dan, it's always good to have you on and show your perspective, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Keep up the good work.